Hello everyone and welcome to our show. Today we're diving headfirst into the gloriously confusing, occasionally terrifying, and always fascinating world of the Russian economy. Buckle up, comrades, because this is going to be a wild ride. Now some of you might be thinking, Russia, an economic powerhouse? Didn't they just have like a revolution involving a very angry man in a hat and a surprising amount of potatoes? And you wouldn't be entirely wrong. Russia's history is, shall we say, a tad dramatic. But here's the thing. Despite centuries of political upheaval, enough revolutions to make a barista dizzy, and a penchant for naming leaders things like Ivan the Terrible, Russia has somehow managed to claw its way to economic relevance. It's like that friend you had in college who lived on a diet of instant ramen and questionable life choices but still managed to graduate with honors. How did they do it? Well, that's what we're here to find out. So, get ready for a deep dive into the land of borscht ballet and baffling economic policies. We'll be exploring everything from their love affair with natural resources, spoiler alert, it's complicated, to their unique brand of political maneuvering. Think chess but with more bears and oligarchs. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment below with your thoughts. Right, let's start with the basics, shall we? When we talk about Russia as an economic powerhouse, we're not just talking about their impressive collection of nesting dolls. We're talking about their GDP, or gross domestic product, which is basically a measure of how much stuff a country produces and sells. And in Russia's case, that stuff adds up to a whole lot of rubles. Now, I'm not going to bore you with a bunch of numbers because frankly, I can feel your eyes glazing over from here. But suffice it to say, Russia's GDP is nothing to sneeze at. It's up there with some of the biggest economies in the world, jostling for position alongside countries with far less exciting histories of political intrigue. But here's where it gets interesting. Unlike many developed nations whose economies are built on things like technology, services, and those little plastic bits that fall off furniture and you can never quite identify, Russia's economic engine is largely fueled by, wait for it, raw materials. That's right, folks, we're talking oil, natural gas, metals, and enough timber to make a beaver weep with envy. It's like finding out that your friend who always seems to have a wad of cash isn't a secret tech genius or a trust fund baby, but actually makes their money by selling off bits of their grandmother's antique jewelry collection. It's impressive, sure, but you can't help but wonder how long it can last. Now you might be thinking, what's wrong with having a lot of natural resources? It's like winning the geographic lottery. And you wouldn't be entirely wrong. Having an abundance of natural resources can be a huge boon for a country's economy, at least in the short term. It's like finding a $20 bill in your pocket. Sure, it's not going to make you rich, but it's definitely going to make your day a little bit brighter. But here's the catch. Relying too heavily on natural resources can also be a double-edged sword. It's a phenomenon economists like to call the resource curse. You see, when a country has a lot of one valuable resource, it tends to focus all its energy, pun intended, on extracting and selling that resource, often neglecting other important sectors of the economy. Imagine you're at a buffet, and there's a giant plate of delicious, glistening bacon in the middle of the table. You might be tempted to just camp out next to the bacon and gorge yourself silly, right? But then you'd miss out on all the other delicious food on offer, the sushi, the pasta, the suspiciously addictive bread rolls, and let's be honest, no matter how much you love bacon, eventually you're going to get sick of it. That's kind of what happens with the resource curse. When a country becomes too reliant on a single resource, it becomes vulnerable to price fluctuations, global demand, and the occasional dictator with a penchant for invading neighboring countries. It's like putting all your eggs in one very fragile, oil-slicked basket. Now, before you start picturing Russia as a one-trick pony, desperately clinging to its oil wells like a toddler to a beloved teddy bear, let's not forget that there's more to this economic behemoth than just digging stuff out of the ground. Russia also has a surprisingly diverse range of industries, from agriculture to arms manufacturing to, believe it or not, technology. Yes, you heard me right. While they may not be churning out iPhones or self-driving cars at the same rate as Silicon Valley, Russia does have a burgeoning tech sector, with companies specializing in everything from cybersecurity to artificial intelligence. It's like discovering that your grumpy, chain-smoking uncle who still uses a rotary phone has a secret Instagram account where he posts artisanal sourdough bread recipes. You're surprised, intrigued, and maybe even a little bit proud. And let's not forget about Russia's agricultural prowess. They are, after all, the world's largest exporter of wheat, which is kind of a big deal when you consider that bread is basically the duct tape of the food world. It holds everything together. They also produce a staggering amount of potatoes, barley, and sunflowers, which, let's be honest, sounds like the ingredients for the most depressing salad ever. So while natural resources may be the backbone of the Russian economy, it's important to remember that there's more to this story than meets the eye. It's a complex, multifaceted beast, with both strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and challenges. It's like a giant economic nesting doll full of surprises and contradictions. And speaking of surprises, let's talk about Russia's military-industrial complex, shall we? Now I know what you're thinking, military spending? In a country with a history of, shall we say, robust military engagement? You don't say. And you'd be right, Russia does have a knack for, let's call it, projecting power. But here's the thing, Russia's military industry isn't just about tanks and fighter jets. It's also a major driver of technological innovation and economic growth. You see, when you're constantly trying to outdo everyone else in the look at my shiny new weapons department, you tend to come up with some pretty cutting-edge technology along the way. It's like that friend who's always buying the latest gadgets and gizmos. Sure, they might be a little obsessed with having the newest, shiniest toy, but you can't deny that they always seem to be ahead of the curve. And sometimes, their obsession benefits you. Like when they let you borrow their VR headset or that weird massage gun thing. Of course, there's always the risk that all that fancy military tech could be used for, less than peaceful purposes. But hey, let's not dwell on the dark side right now. We're trying to stay positive here, people. So, there you have it. A whirlwind tour of the Russian economy. It's a wild, unpredictable ride full of twists and turns, but one thing's for sure, it's never boring. Okay, so we've covered the economic lay of the land, but let's be honest, no conversation about Russia would be complete without discussing the political bear in the room. And no, I'm not talking about a literal bear, although, knowing Russia, that wouldn't be entirely surprising. I'm talking about the man, the myth, the enigma wrapped in a riddle inside a perfectly tailored suit, Vladimir Putin. Now, before we dive into the intricacies of Putin's reign, let's take a quick crash course in Russian politics, shall we? Buckle up, comrades, because this is where things get a little complicated. You see, Russia operates under a system known as a semi-presidential republic. And if you're thinking that sounds like a political oxymoron, you're not far off. Imagine a Venn diagram, right? On one side you've got your presidential system like the good old US of A, where the president's the big cheese, the head honcho, the decider of all things important. On the other side you've got your parliamentary system, like they have in the UK, where the prime minister's calling the shots, usually while wearing a slightly bewildered expression. Now smack those two systems together, add a dash of historical baggage, a sprinkle of Cold War paranoia, and a whole lot of vodka, and what do you get? That's right, you get the Russian semi-presidential system. Alright folks, buckle up because we're diving headfirst into the land of vodka, bears wearing ushankas, and those nesting dolls that just keep going and going and going. And no, I'm not talking about Russian election cycles, though the analogy is almost too tempting to resist. We're talking about the sheer mind-boggling vastness that is Mother Russia. This place is so big it spans 11 time zones. 11. That means you could theoretically eat breakfast in Moscow, have 11sies in Novosibirsk, and still be on time for dinner in Vladivostok. Though you might need a strong stomach and a comfy pair of sweatpants for all that time travel. And speaking of vastness, let's talk about the Trans-Siberian Railway. This bad boy is the longest railway line in the world, stretching over 5,700 miles. That's like laying train tracks from New York to London, then to Dubai, and then deciding, you know what, let's just keep going a bit further. It's an epic journey through some of the most breathtaking landscapes on Earth, and probably a logistical nightmare if you forget to pack snacks. But here's the thing about Russia. It's not just about size, it's about the unique blend of culture and history crammed within its borders. From the majestic onion domes of St. Basil's Cathedral to the haunting melodies of Tchaikovsky, Russia's cultural tapestry is as rich and varied as its landscape. It's a place where you can find world-class ballet alongside traditional folk dances that'll make your head spin faster than a bottle of Stoli on a cosmonaut training day. Now I know what you're thinking. John, you've mentioned bears, vodka, and those creepy dolls. Surely there's more to Russia than stereotypical cliches. And you'd be right, kind of. Those cliches exist for a reason, but they're just the tip of the iceberg, albeit a very large, vodka-infused iceberg. Let's start with the food, because any country that can make a beetroot soup sound delicious deserves some serious culinary cred. We're talking about borscht, people, a hearty, soul-warming soup that's like a warm hug for your insides. And yes, they do have caviar, but it's not all fancy-pants blinis and oligarch parties. You can find delicious, affordable caviar in local markets, perfect for adding a touch of luxury to your instant ramen. But Russia's culinary delights don't stop there. Oh no, my friends, we've got pirojki, little savory pastries filled with everything from meat to potatoes to cabbage. We've got pelmeni, tiny, meat-filled dumplings that are basically Russian comfort food personified. And then there's the honey cake, a towering masterpiece of delicate layers and creamy goodness that'll make you want to lick the plate, and possibly the person sitting next to you. The point is, Russia is a land of contrasts, contradictions, and culinary delights that extend far beyond the usual suspects. It's a place where you can find both the familiar and the utterly unexpected, often within the same city block. Just try not to get too distracted by the bears wearing ushankas. Alright, let's address the elephant in the room, or should I say, the bear in the room. Russia's economy isn't exactly known for its transparency. It's like trying to get a straight answer out of a politician who's been caught with his hand in the cookie jar. And a big reason for that is the ever-growing list of international sanctions. Now, sanctions are essentially the international community's way of saying, we're not happy with your behavior, so we're taking away your economic toys. It's like grounding a teenager, but instead of taking away their phone, you're targeting entire sectors of their economy. The West has slapped sanctions on Russia for everything from election interference to human rights abuses, and let's just say, it's put a bit of a damper on Russia's economic aspirations. Think of it like this. Russia is trying to throw a lavish dinner party, but half the guests have decided to boycott because of the host's questionable behavior, and the guests who do show up, they're bringing their own snacks because they're not sure what the host is serving. It's awkward, to say the least. But here's the thing, Russia being Russia, it's not like they're going to let a few sanctions spoil their appetite. They've been busy trying to find ways to circumvent these sanctions, like that friend who always manages to sneak into a concert without paying. They've been cozying up to countries like China, forging new trade partnerships, and generally trying to make themselves less reliant on the West. It's a risky strategy, like trying to juggle chainsaws while riding a unicycle, but hey, you've got to admire their tenacity, right? Let's talk energy, shall we? Russia, as you know, sits atop a veritable treasure trove of oil and gas reserves. It's like they won the geological lottery and then decided to use their winnings to build a giant pipeline network. They're one of the world's largest exporters of these energy resources, and for a long time it's been their bread and butter, their vodka and caviar, if you will. But here's the rub: being overly reliant on any single industry is like putting all your eggs in one Fabergé egg basket. It's beautiful and all, but incredibly fragile. And as the world starts to wean itself off fossil fuels in favor of greener alternatives, Russia's energy dominance is starting to look a tad precarious. Imagine if your entire financial portfolio was invested in a single company, and that company was Blockbuster Video. You'd be sweating a bit, wouldn't you? Now, Russia isn't completely oblivious to this energy transition. They're dipping their toes into renewable energy sources, but let's just say they're not exactly diving in headfirst. It's like they're at a buffet, piling their plate high with all the familiar, comforting dishes, while eyeing the salad bar with a mixture of suspicion and disdain. What are these leafy greens? Where's the beef? The question is, can Russia diversify its economy fast enough to keep up with the changing times? Can they break free from their energy dependence and become a major player in the global tech scene? Or will they be left behind, clinging to their oil wells like a washed-up rock star clinging to their last bottle of hairspray? Only time will tell. Now let's talk about something a bit delicate, Russia's population. You see, it's not exactly booming. In fact, it's been on a bit of a downward trend for a while now. It's like a game of demographic musical chairs, and every round there are fewer and fewer players. Now there are a lot of factors at play here, from declining birth rates to immigration, but the bottom line is, a shrinking workforce isn't exactly ideal for a country trying to be an economic powerhouse. Imagine trying to build a skyscraper with a dwindling supply of construction workers. It's going to take a lot longer, and let's be honest, the quality might suffer a bit. A smaller workforce means fewer consumers, fewer taxpayers, and less overall economic activity. It's like trying to run a marathon while carrying a backpack full of rocks. You might finish the race, but it's going to be a lot harder and a lot less fun. Now Russia is trying to address this demographic dilemma. They've introduced policies to encourage families to have more children, like offering financial incentives and extended maternity leave. It's like they're hosting a baby shower for the entire nation, with free diapers and government-sponsored lullabies. But will it be enough to reverse the trend? That's the million-ruble question. The reality is, Russia's economic future is inextricably linked to its demographics. A larger, younger population would be a boon for the economy, injecting it with much-needed dynamism and innovation. But for now, Russia remains caught in this demographic paradox, struggling to reconcile its economic ambitions with its shrinking population. It's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, only the peg is getting smaller and the hole is staying the same size. So, we've talked about the challenges, but what about the solutions? Well, if there's one word that sums up Russia's economic strategy going forward, it's diversification. They're trying to branch out, explore new avenues, basically, not put all their eggs in one basket, especially when that basket is woven from international sanctions and volatile energy prices. Think of it like this. Russia has been relying on its natural resources to pay the bills for far too long. It's like that friend who's coasting through life on their good looks and charm but never bothered to learn any actual skills. But now the friend is realizing that looks fade and charm only gets you so far. It's time to invest in some substance, to diversify their portfolio of life skills, if you will. So, what does diversification look like for Russia? Well, they're investing in tech, trying to nurture their own Silicon Valley, which, knowing Russia, is probably located in a former Cold War bunker and powered by borscht. They're also trying to boost their manufacturing sector because who doesn't love a good Made in Russia label, right? Think high-quality vodka, military hardware that could survive a nuclear apocalypse, and those adorable nesting dolls, only now they're equipped with facial recognition technology. It's a long and winding road, this whole diversification thing. It's like trying to teach a bear to ride a bicycle. Impressive if they pull it off, but with a high probability of chaos and potential injury along the way. But hey, if Russia can manage to pull it off, to become less reliant on energy exports and more of a well-rounded economic player, well, that would be something to see. It would be like watching that bear not only ride the bicycle, but juggle those Fabergé eggs while doing it. A sight to behold indeed. Well folks, there you have it. A whirlwind tour of the enigmatic, often perplexing and always entertaining world of the Russian economy. We've delved into the depths of their resource wealth, grappled with the complexities of their political system, and marveled at the sheer vastness of their landmass. We've also explored the challenges they face, from international sanctions to demographic dilemmas, and the efforts they're making to diversify and modernize their economy. Russia's economic journey is a fascinating one, full of twists and turns, ups and downs. It's a story of immense potential, hampered by internal and external pressures, a story that's still being written. So, as we bid adieu to this economic odyssey, we're left with more questions than answers. Will Russia manage to overcome its challenges and emerge as a true economic superpower? Can it shake off its dependence on natural resources and embrace a more innovative, diversified future? Only time will tell. Chapter 7. Outro, 1 section. Section 1. Outro. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment below. What do you think is the most interesting fact about Russia? See you next time.